Okay, so initially when I started making these videos, I said that I would be more consistent, and obviously that hasn't been the case. And I think part of that is because at the onset, I had the inclination to discuss a variety of topics, but it's not that I've ran out of topics because there's always ideas and concepts to discuss, but I think lacking a formal structure has been an impediment, to say the least. So now, I think the best way forward, is to use this card game as a framework, or at the very least to enable me to create the consistency, the discipline of making these videos by discussing these various debate questions. So I guess what I'll do is, from here on out, is just flip it open. There's 3 different questions, or I guess ideas that you could discuss. I'll take a stance on it. The first one is, who would you trust more to drive you around? A human driver or a self-driving car? Why? I would say that it depends on the time. If the technology of self-driving cars, if the software is advanced enough where the accident rate is much lower than that of a human driver, then of course I would choose the self-driving car. But I think in a situation where it requires a level of creativity and adjustment to nuance in the moment, I think I may choose a human driver. So it really depends, unless the technology has evolved past a point where having a human behind the wheel would be deleterious to your health or your survival rate. Then I think it would be easy to say that I would much rather have a self-driving car than a human driver, for sure. The second question is, who would win in a fight? A kid in the body of a bear or a bear in the body of a kid? I think a kid in the body of a bear would easily win a fight, because essentially you're still fighting a bear. If a bear is in the body of a kid, it may fight very tenaciously, but it's not going to do the same level of damage as the kid in the bear's body. So I think that's a pretty easy one. And the third one is, wild animals such as coyotes, mountain lions, wolves, and others are routinely killed because they threaten humans or livestock. What's the best argument in favor of or against continuing this practice? My stance would be one of equilibrium. It's not necessarily that we should kill them or that we should not kill them. I think the populations should be controlled. I think that predators are critical to an ecosystem, and they keep grazers and everything below them, below that apex, in check in some regard. And if an ecosystem is void of predators, things will become unbalanced, become unregulated, and that could have a multiplicity of effects, downstream effects, first and second and third order effects on not only humans, but the ecology as well. But I don't think we should have a free-for-all, per se, killing spree on these animals. Because they are, yes, they're a threat to humans, but in the macro, I don't think they pose that much of a threat as long as the population is held in equilibrium, right? There should be a certain point where if it does get out of hand and there's too many wolves or bears around, then the government or whichever domicile you reside in should issue tags to go hunt those animals and at least keep the population in check. So it's not so much that we shouldn't kill them or that we should. It's more so that we should facilitate a healthy ecosystem where they can be, a thriving species and they can serve their purpose, but at the same time, we shouldn't let it I guess my stats would be give them the space to flourish without becoming an impediment on human growth. Which is a very contentious thing to say, right? Because who decides where's the point of confliction where their population is now becoming a hindrance to the human population? Is it when they start walking, or rather perusing around human territory, right? Or where there's a higher density of humans versus prey? Or is it when they have an adverse effect to the ecosystem, right? Maybe they're killing too many prey and they're not giving the prey enough time to reproduce. It's a very difficult and complex question, right? And I think the true answer is it depends. And with situations like that, you need nuance, you need complexity, you need to be able to pivot and adjust accordingly depending on the facts at that time in the moment. Right? It's not one size fits all. Let's do two more. Which format is better for learning new information, textbooks or tablets? Which is better? I would say depends on what you're learning. If you're learning something like coding or machine learning or any type of programming language, I think a tablet would be by far much better, because not only do you have the raw data, but you can actually implement it in real time, and there's various apps that gamify that learning process. But if you're gonna do something, if you're gonna learn or study philosophy or poetry or the arts, maybe a textbook would be better. No, I think a tablet's much better, actually. In other countries, students are responsible for cleaning the desks, hallways, and even the bathrooms at their school. Should students at your school do the same? Why or why not? 100% absolutely agree. I think that students taking part in cleaning their environment and being responsible for their classroom and by extension their school gives them a level of pride in their school, gives them a sense of meaning and responsibility. And whenever you have that sense of meaning and responsibility embedded within your environment, it ultimately creates a reverence, a sense of respect that transcends that environment in and of itself, right? Because now, as these kids are eating lunch, there's a different way in which they'll eat lunch, right? Maybe they won't be as messy, or their respect for the environment will then be transmuted to respect for each other. And it creates this collective ideal that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. And I think more responsibility is always a good thing. I don't think there's a situation in which more responsibility could be a bad thing, in my opinion. So I'm all for that. J.K. Rowling wrote, "If you want to know what a man's like, take a good look at how he treats his inferiors, not his equals. Argue in favor or against this as a true test of personality." I completely agree. I think anecdotally, when we go to business meetings or dinners, one thing we really look for is how our counterparts, how our colleagues or associates, how they treat the servers, right? Are they polite? What are their mannerisms? Do they say please and thank you? And that speaks volumes on who a person is, right? Because if you treat someone with respect solely because they have status or money, then clearly you have no respect for on a human level, right? It's more so on a superficial, very surface level. And that's important because, you have to realize that these things can be taken away at any moment. You can lose your wealth, your status, and what's left, right? It's the human. So regardless of whether you're speaking to a CEO or whether you're having a discussion with a homeless person on the street, I think every single person deserves a level of respect and dignity. And individuals that lack that concept, that empathy, are more than likely driven by ulterior motives that may not align to our beliefs or my beliefs or what we view as right. And I think putting an individual in a situation where they have to interact with people whom on the surface level may seem as inferior, and see how they behave in those environments is truly telling, and it speaks volumes of their character, of who they truly are. It really does, right? Because when it comes to success, obviously it takes a lot of discipline and hard work, and you have to be conscientious and industrious, but there's this element of luck that is always underplayed in it. It's truly the luck of the draw, right? You could have been born in Iraq, you could have been born in sub-Saharan Africa, you could have been born a different race, a different height, a different time, and all these things are completely out of our control. So although, yes, there's a lot of effort that goes into being successful and climbing the social ladder, and once you achieve this hierarchy, once you achieve this status, then you're higher in the competence hierarchy, and you're seen as more important or superior in some respects or in some regards. You have to really you have to really pay homage to the notion that a lot of your success, or a huge component of it, has to do with luck, right? You could have been hit by a drunk driver, you could have gotten sick, cancer at a young age and passed away. And, it reminds me of this story I read about Marcus Aurelius, how as he's walking through the Roman halls or in the town square, people would come up to him and say various pleasantries and give him reverence and compliments, and he would have a guide behind him whisper in his ear, "You're just a man. Always remember that, you're just a man." And I think that's critically important to remember, right? To humble oneself, not to bring yourself down lower per se, right? Not to be feeble or weak. You should have a sense of pride in who you are and what you've accomplished, but always remember at the end of the day, you're just a man, and everything you've achieved is ultimately, it'll just be dust one day, right? And death is that great equalizer. And if you can go through life treating everyone the same, I think it makes you a better individual.